What's up, guys? So it's your teacher Descalos, and it's another video on improving your English skills. Now, today I'm going to talk about Ielts and how to get a high score on the Ielts test. Now, what do I mean by the high score? I mean like C1 level or C2. These two levels are called the most proficient scores on the Ielts test. So if you are a proficient user of English language, then you will get one of the scores like C1 or C2. Now C1, it starts from 7.5, so you need to get at least 7.5 from all the sections to get this band score. And if you get 8 or above, that means you're C2 level and you are able to use English in a very complex way. So now, how do you do that? How you can get that? Now, do you need to read a lot? Yes, you do. And do you need to write a lot? Yes, of course. And do you need to listen a lot? That one too. And you need a lot of practice with your speaking. Now, when it comes to reading, these books behind me are not just, they're not English books, so I'm not reading them, and or at least some of them. I've read some of them. There are some English books, so these books are here just to impress you. All right, so let's talk about the Ielts. Now, how do you start to prepare for the Ielts? How do you take the test? How do you know that you're ready to take the test? As I mentioned in my previous video when we talked about TOEFL, how to take the TOEFL test. To take the Ielts test or to sit for the test, you need to have at least an advanced level of English. And when you have the advanced level of English, it'll make you like studying for the Ielts a lot easier, and it will take a shorter time. And I believe if you're advanced, if your level is really advanced, and you are able to use like the language in an advanced level as an advanced student, and not only grammar but all the like 4 skills which are essential in every language, and then it will take a shorter time for you to practice for the test and to get ready for the test. Now, I think 1 month or maximum 2 months are ready. It's enough time of period for a person who has an advanced level of English and who can go and just sit for the test. Because remember, you need to know that like Ielts is more about skills, and for each of the sections, those skills are different. So, for instance, like if you're a very good speaker of English, it doesn't mean that you also write well in English. So you might be a very good speaker of English, but it doesn't mean that you will get a high score on the writing test, which was in my case. The score that I got was like 8 from speaking and 7.5, 7 from writing, and listening I got 8, and the reading section I got just 7. Yeah, 7 as well. So that gave me a band score of 7.5. Now you could get a higher at least. You could get a higher, maybe at least 8 or 7.5, but not all the requirements are to get a C1 level or a C2. Maybe your requirements for the IELTS test for the university that you're applying to, or for any program or for any job that you're applying to, is different. So is lower. Your requirement might be lower. So it's like 6.5 maybe, and 6.5 is an easy score to get, I think, and I believe. Many people can get 6.5. And now, how do you prepare for the test? How do you know that your English is advanced enough to study the strategies and to learn the test skills? Now, if you're still like using very basic adjectives, like when you're speaking, or like simple vocabulary, like when people ask you how is the weather, you say, "Oh, it's nice." Then you have a problem with your vocabulary. It means you have lack of adjectives to describe things, to talk about things, and you're not quite confident about that. So yeah, and you're insecure about your speaking or your vocabulary. Now, when it comes to vocabulary, it's both useful in speaking section and in writing section. You should be able to show that you can manage using advanced vocabulary in both of the sections. But not to confuse you, let's revise a little bit, and talk about the two types of IELTS. There are two types of IELTS. One is academic, which is for universities and for your studying and studies, and the other is general, which is mainly used for immigration or for your job. Maybe you're applying for a job in an English-speaking country, or your workplace requires knowledge of English and requires a certificate that shows that you have the knowledge required by the company. So yeah. Now, what are the difference between these two? Like, the only difference in these two different types of IELTS is that in the academic writing, the reading and the writing is a little bit different. You have fewer passages in the reading, but they're a little bit more advanced, so they're a little bit more difficult vocabulary. And actually, it's in the academic writing, academic IELTS, it's easier to get a higher score, because when it comes to general IELTS, like to get a high score like C1 or C2, you need to answer more questions, and you have more paragraphs, like more passages, like about the last time I had it was like about 5 or 6 passages I had to answer. And so if you answer, like, let's say in academic, if you answer like 35 questions, you get already 8 in reading. But if you answer 35 questions in general reading, then you wouldn't get 8. You would just get 7 or 7.5, something around that. So you need to check that online. And when it comes to writing, it's also totally different. Quite different, actually, when it comes to task 1. The task 1 in the academic IELTS is requires you to describe a chart, describe a chart or a graph or a pie chart, and or a table, or maybe even a sketch, an architectural drawing of or sketch of something that you need to tell the difference or the trends, and etc. And when it comes to the general writing, in task 1, you're required to write a letter. It might be a letter to your boss, to your friend, or a complaint letter to a company, like that, where you bought something and you didn't like it, and you're writing a complaint letter. So that's basically it when it comes to the difference between these two IELTS types. And the speaking and listening are totally the same. You're asked the same questions, similar questions, and the level of difficulty of those questions is totally the same. So you answer the same questions. So the chances of getting the same scoring, you get the same scoring. Like you answer this number of questions, and you get the same score, both the general and the academic. So yeah. So this is what you need to know to study for the test. And when you're studying for the test, the first thing you need to do is take a mock test, and you need to identify which are your weak points. Maybe you're good at speaking, but you're bad at writing, or maybe both of these sections are good. You're good at, but there is reading and listening, or maybe listening is the only Achilles heel that you have. So you need to fix on that. So you need to work on that. So, and you need to practice a lot. You need to do a lot of listening. If you want to write well, you need to do a lot of reading as well, because you need to read articles. And when it comes to writing, a lot of teachers previously that I had told me you need to. A lot of tutors for files that I had, they used to tell you need to use academic vocabulary. You cannot use phrasal verbs or idioms in your writing, because that kind of decreases your score. But actually, that's not true. And to impress the examiner, you need to use some phrasal verbs and some idioms, just a couple, to show that you know these things. You know how to use them correctly in your writing as well. So this is how this is how you're judged and how you're like evaluated. And one thing I learned about the Ielts, like when it comes to task 1 writing and task 2, they're evaluated by totally different people. So your task 1 maybe goes to one examiner, and your task 2 goes to a different examiner. And you probably should know that the task 2 is more important than task 1. So you got to work on that. That's basically it. If you have any questions, you can comment below this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.